Saturday anime. It's always shocking to me that this block of programming is rarely brought up in conversation when the whole subject of how did you get into anime comes up. Now, don't get me wrong. It's been a while since the mid-90s, and with more and more people leaving the fandom from that time period, seeing Saturday anime fade into obscurity isn't completely surprising, but there had to be a decent amount of otaku that would have never even known the meaning of the word anime had it not been for this legendary old-school block on TV. Don't believe me that no one remembers this glorious TV spot that changed everything? Look it up on YouTube. So what is or was Saturday Anime exactly? Well, Saturday Anime was a block of anime programming that ran on the Sci-Fi channel in the mid-90s. According to IMDb, it started in 1995, and that sounds about right since you can't get more mid-90s than right smack dab in the middle of the decade. Apparently, the official name of the thing was Sci-Fi Channel Saturday Anime, but I don't remember anyone ever calling it by that full title. We knew it was on the Sci-Fi channel, we knew it was anime, that was good enough. I think most people actually called it, hey, did you see that crazy cartoon with the schoolgirl punching through the wall last night? But that might be a little bit hard to put on a logo, so I kind of see why they didn't pick that. I also don't remember the live-action anime girl host, Apollo Smile? That was apparently a host, but that might be for the better from what I have seen.
Groovy.
Anyway, each Saturday, the Sci-Fi Channel would show a different movie or OVA, and looking back on the list, they were pretty much all bangers. Project A-ko, Vampire Hunter D, Venus Wars, Dominion Tank Police, Tenchi Muyo in Love. The list just goes on and on and on. And they would show these every Saturday morning starting at 10 a.m. Central Time. I'm shocked that I remember that, but it's true, because I remember it, and young weebs like myself would rejoice. Now, of course, some of these movies and OVAs had scenes that really wouldn't work on American TV, but for the most part, they were fairly true to their original form, of course, with an English dub as well, with as much violence and cursing as you could allow on American cable TV in the mid-90s, and on a Saturday morning, nonetheless, a time typically reserved for cartoons. And sometimes they would even show these on different days of the week or different times, especially when they had events like their annual Festival of Anime and, of course, the Anime Week events. These were very, very big deals at the time, but we're not here to talk about those today since they were obviously so different. Also, we're not here to go into details about the history of anime on the Sci-Fi Channel in general. I'll leave that subject for another time and most likely another channel, though you never really know. We're simply here to look back at the craziest block of Saturday animated programming that ever graced U.S. shores. Now, I know for a fact I'd seen a little bit of anime before Saturday Anime, at least in the scheme of things, but I never heard the phrase anime. It was a different time, and growing up, I remember enjoying reruns of Voltron, laughing at the ridiculousness of the English dub of Speed Racer, and of course, Robotech being a thing. I wasn't super into any of these shows, but I knew they existed. However, I always thought these were just cartoons. To me, these were no different than Ghostbusters or Rocko's Modern Life. But one day, it all changed, and I still remember my first real anime that I saw thanks to Saturday Anime. That, of course, was the legendary Dominion Tank Police. This is an amazing 4-part OVA series that the Sci-Fi Channel would combine into 2 different movies that were basically standalone movies in that regard, and they would show them one week after the other typically. I stumbled across it one morning and I was blown away. Now, anyone that knows this series knows that there's no way this was getting on TV completely unedited, but my young impressionable self didn't know that, and honestly, even if I had, I wouldn't have cared because it was awesome. This thing absolutely blew me away, and I didn't even know how to handle it at the time. It was just so different from everything I had seen up till then, and I loved it. And I found this one day just by flipping through the channels, something that's a bit of a lost art these days, but nonetheless, that's how I came across this perfect work of art for me. It had explosions, it had tanks, it had cat girls. I don't even think that I understood the humor at the time, but nonetheless, I was blown away. It was very, very, very different from the normal cartoons I had consumed up to this point in my life, and it even felt a little bit dangerous. It seemed like something a little bit too adult for me at the time, since I, of course, was so young. And I don't think I knew exactly what was different about it. Of course I didn't. I had no idea this was from another country. I watched it until the end, however, and I don't even think I picked up on the name at the time. A cartoon that blew me away, of course, at the time and still does to this day, but a cartoon nonetheless. After loving what I just witnessed, I continue to revisit the Sci-Fi Channel over and over and over again, something that I'd never done before. I had high hopes that I would get to see more tanks blowing up cities and more cat girls blowing up those tanks, and I was not a fan of the Sci-Fi Channel at the time. It kind of seemed like what you would call old person programming, if I'm being completely honest. I wasn't into Star Trek, I wasn't into Stargate, I wasn't into anything with Star in the title. I think this was even before I was into Star Wars, so I can say that that's completely accurate. Regardless, while I don't remember exactly what happened next, I started to stumble across a couple other cartoons, as I thought they were at the time. And of course, some of the ones I remember seeing early on were Kashan Robot Hunter and Venus Wars. These were amazing. They were amazing, and somewhere along the way, I learned that this stuff was called anime. I mean, that's what the bumper said at the very least. What was anime? I didn't know, but this was anime. Yay! I now am a fan of anime, I suppose. Because, as I mentioned earlier, I had seen Voltron, Robotech, Speed Racer, who knows what else, but these were just branded as cartoons. The word anime didn't exist in my world. Today, of course, everyone seems to know what anime is, even if they're not a fan of it, but at the time, that seemed like a very intentional move from the Sci-Fi Channel to really brand this stuff and tell you what the heck it was. And despite seeing all of these other awesome action cartoons or anime, I was still in search of the show with the tanks. I wanted to see the tanks. I didn't know if it was a movie, I didn't know if it was a show, but I wanted to see it. However, I did quickly pick up on the fact that all of these things were shown on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Central Time. Again, how do I remember that? I don't know, but I do. It's a part of my memory from that time period. So I was getting up early, or at least setting a VCR to record these shows. And then one day, after all of the buildup, all of the excitement, all of the searching, it happened. That weird but awesome intro started to episode 1, followed by that magical theme song, a theme song I will never forget as long as I live. I was finally there, Dominion Tank Police, and all of its 90s cut down for American TV glory. The explosions, the cat girls, the tanks, the action, the comedy that I still didn't really understand at the time, the story that made sense to me in the first 2 parts, but definitely got confusing down the road. It was glorious. It was beautiful. It was absolutely amazing. This is what I was looking for. I didn't realize I was looking for it at the time, but when I found it, yeah, this was the stuff. And I distinctly remember loving, absolutely adoring the first 2 episodes, which of course, again, were combined into one movie. And I was very confused by the second movie and or the 3rd and 4th episodes. And it didn't matter, though. It really didn't matter. Something about that confusion even drew me in even more to all of this. I knew the name of my new favorite franchise, and I knew what it was part of. It was part of anime, whatever that was. But luckily, Saturday Anime was there to give me more of this type of stuff. I quickly consumed the first couple episodes of Record of Lodoss Wars. I saw Akira. I saw Venus Wars. I saw Region Z. I loved it all. All of this stuff was just so amazing to me at the time. It was so brand new because the thing was, anime wasn't so easy to get back in the day. While things weren't as dire as I know they were in, say, the 80s, it still wasn't an easy process like it is today. A store-bought anime VHS tape could cost you anywhere between $30 and $40 or even possibly more for a single movie or even just a couple of episodes. And speaking of episodes, most TV series were anywhere from 6 to 12 VHS tapes or more. And, I just mentioned the prices that they cost, so you can just imagine how much money it would cost to see an entire series. And, I was in grade school. That wasn't happening. And while I loved looking at these expensive VHS tapes at Suncoast and Media Play, it didn't really matter that much since I knew they were a little bit out of reach because I had Saturday Anime, but I did look at the tapes quite often and just think to myself, I hope they show this one on Saturday Anime one day. And then bam, like a kick from Terry Bogard to the head, Fatal Fury was on TV. I remember looking at the Fatal Fury VHS tape and thinking that it just looked amazing. I don't even think I knew the video game existed at that point, but the tape looked great. And then I saw it on TV. It was amazing. It was absolutely incredible. I even remember looking at these things called laser discs that they had at Tower Records. They looked absolutely incredible. The art was so stunning, but I didn't know what a laser disc was, and they were even more expensive than the tapes. So I knew that there wasn't any way I was going to actually ever get any of those. But later in life, let's just say that the young version of me would have been quite impressed with what I ended up owning. So here I was enjoying this newfound thing called anime, and then it happened. I witnessed what I would consider possibly the highlight of the entire Saturday Anime run. Tenchi Muyo in Love. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Now this is what it's all about. While Dominion Tank Police will always hold a special place in my heart as my first actual anime, this was my first favorite anime in a genre I had just realized was, well, a viable genre with different shows, different titles, different aspects to the entire scene. The visuals were stunning. The characters were amazing. The story was a little bit confusing, but extremely compelling. I know I've said this before, but this was just the thing I was looking for. I didn't know that I was looking for it, but I was looking for it, and then I found it. I was absolutely obsessed. I had to get more like this. And luckily, there was quite a bit of Tenchi out there to consume, but no other piece of Tenchi media ever had quite the same effect on me as this movie. Not only is this arguably my favorite anime movie of all time, this is just one of my favorite movies of all time. It's right up there with Wild Zero and Purple Rain. So, what does that say about it? It's absolutely incredible. Plus, I eventually went on to own the expensive VHS tape and a couple versions of it on Laserdisc. So it just goes to show you that all dreams can be achieved if you try hard enough. So you're probably picking up on this already with a lot of the titles I've mentioned, but this was a very curated list of programming. While a lot of these series and movies were modern at the time, many of them went on to be complete classics for the entire genre to this day. This was basically a great starter pack for the entire fandom as a whole, and really wouldn't be a terrible place to start even by today's standards. I'm sure many people that stumbled across this block of programming like I did went on to do amazing things related to the entire genre, like consume more anime and spend money on anime and cosplay characters from anime and be degenerate weirdos about anime. You know, all of the basic ways to enjoy this form of entertainment. And for me, well, I continued to consume Saturday Anime religiously until it eventually faded away, just like many things. I had most of the content recorded on a wall of VHS tapes by the time that it ended, and, you know, at that point, it was pretty noticeable that they hadn't added any new series into the rotation, and the magic of the Saturday Anime block, let's just be honest, it was starting to fade away a little bit at the time. And while Saturday Anime started to fade away, by the time of the late 90s and early 2000s, the entire landscape of anime fandom in America was changing at a very rapid pace. Sure, you still had your fan sub VHS tapes and your expensive Laserdiscs, but you also had more affordable ways to consume this media and learn about these shows. You had the Animerica magazine. You had Viz releasing manga that was pretty easy to get and fairly affordable, all things considered, and you even had the occasional merchandise popping up for some of these shows that you loved. Plus, anime was ready for TV at this point finally. You had Ronin Warriors, you had Sailor Moon, you had Dragon Ball Z, you had Yu-Gi-Oh!, and who could forget Pokemon. By the early 2000s, America was officially in the middle of an anime boom, an anime boom that nobody would have been able to predict just a few years prior. And with the exception of a few shows like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh!, the term anime was typically attached to all these giant franchises like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon. So of course this had a ripple effect on the entire industry, not just the shows that were being shown on TV through Cartoon Network and Toonami. The VHS sections at stores started to expand. More anime cons than ever were popping up. People knew what the term anime meant, and that was something really special to get to witness in real time. Plus, statistically speaking, that means that Pokemon helped at least a few Americans learn what The Legend of the Overfiend and Mad Bull 34 are. Yeah, you know, perfect works of art. So while we will never be able to completely or accurately assert how much Saturday Anime really did change the overall landscape of anime fandom in America, I can say, without a doubt, it has changed my life, introducing me to this fandom and to some of my favorite franchises that have continued to be my favorite franchises to this very day. So thank you, Saturday Anime. Thank you for walking so that just a few short years later, Pokemon, Sailor Moon, and Dragon Ball Z could absolutely run at a feverish pace. You did some good things, Saturday Anime, and I will never, ever forgive. I will never, ever forget you for it. Thank you.
その時二人感じるのかけがえのないものを気まぐれな